Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another Hot Toys Star Wars The Mandalorian 1/6 scale figure unboxing and review video. Now today we're taking a look at something very special indeed. For those of you who don't know, way back when I was younger, when I was a kid, my favourite all-time design of an Imperial Trooper was the Scout Trooper. So of course when Hot Toys announced that they weren't only doing just a standard boxed release, but also a 2-pack with Grogu and a speeder bike, I of course had to pick up both. So yes, sit down, buckle up, this is going to be one jam-packed review. We will be comparing the Scout Trooper back to the Sideshow one, and the same thing with the bike, and see if there are any differences or improvements here. Now I picked up mine from toyswonderland.com. The link for that is of course down in the description below. They do have 12-month installment plans if you're a fan of paying off your figures over time. What we are going to do now though is get the box for the standard Scout Trooper laying flat in the light box and do the unboxing. And here of course we have the box art for the single pack Scout Trooper. Now how this is going to work is, if you've seen any of my other double pack reviews, I'm going to open up this box and we'll take a look at the contents. Then we'll do the exact same thing for the pack with the Scout Trooper and the speeder bike, so don't worry, you won't miss out on anything. Now here we have the box art. It's relatively simple. Picture of the Scout Trooper right up here on the front, and yes, that's the figure, not an image of the suit from the show. Now we do have this wraparound with the Scout Trooper once again, another image on the side, and of course on this side we have that continuation of the first image. It seems like the Mandalorian line is going to be getting these wraparound pieces on pretty much all the releases, and I'm personally fine with that. I love the way it looks. Now here of course is a bit of a tease of the speeder bike, because if you are picking up this standard release, there's no way to then retroactively go ahead and pick up the bike. You have to do it at the time of purchase. You can't buy the bike by itself. But yeah, I really love that image right there. And here we have the Scout Trooper himself. I've owned the Sideshow one since it was released, and I'm curious as to whether this is going to be a massive improvement or only a little one. But don't worry, we will find out throughout the course of the video. And here we have him. First in-hand impressions are pretty positive. He feels like a solid, sturdy figure, unlike that Sideshow one, which we'll talk about in just a second. But yeah, overall, so far, I'm pretty impressed. Now, as you can see, he does come with a few accessories, but what we are going to do first, before we take a look at them, is get the box out here for the deluxe version with the speeder bike, and continue the unboxing. Next up, here we have the box artwork for the 2-pack with Grogu and the Scout Trooper, plus the big honkin' speeder bike. I'm really excited to get this open. We do have another image of the Scout Trooper just casually resting on his speeder bike on the strip down the bottom, and another promo shot on the side of him maybe doing a little bit of target practice. Now, just to give you an idea of the massive scale of this box, here is the one that we literally just opened up, being the regular Scout Trooper. This is enormous in pretty much every dimension. It's crazy to see a Hot Toys box this big. It's actually bigger in my opinion than some of their life-size pieces that we've seen in recent times. Now yeah, as I said, I'm really excited to open this up. I never thought that Hot Toys would be doing a speeder bike. I thought that yeah, maybe we'd get the Scout Troopers, but the bike was a long shot. I'm really curious to do a comparison between this bike and the Sideshow one. But this piece of box artwork on the inside, I love it. It is absolutely gorgeous. I'm tempted to display this in the background of my cabinet. That's how much I love that piece of box artwork. This is interesting. I didn't know they were going to be doing this. Very, very classy by Hot Toys. A Star Wars imprint on the clam tray. That's something that I personally have never seen before. Now we do have this top tray and one down below housing the bike, but as we've already taken a look at the Scout Trooper, the only real new thing that we want to see from this top tray is the child, aka Grogu himself. And here we have him. Don't worry, we will be taking a much closer look at him a little bit later in the video. What we are going to do next is, of course, keeping in line with the order in which we unboxed the two versions, we're going to take a look at the accessories that come with the standard version first, Then we'll get all of the accessories that come with this speeder bike deluxe set laid out in the lightbox and take a closer look at everything he comes with. And here we have all of the bits and pieces that come with the standard version of the Scout Trooper. Don't worry, in the very next clip we will be taking a look at everything that comes with the Grogu and speeder bike pack as well. Starting off with the display base first. It's the same display base that we got with the Durasteel Mando, with the Beskar Mando, and for some reason with IG-11, except this time it's done in this dark charcoalish grey colour. It's meant to replicate, obviously, Navarro, and I think it does a really good job of that. The one thing that I'm not a huge fan of is the prefixed foot placement here, but nevertheless, you can of course place his feet anywhere on the base. It'll just look a little bit goofy because they are supposed to go in these foot sections. Now you can see a nice metal nameplate that says Scout Trooper there. Now, he doesn't come with a hell of a lot of stuff if you're just getting the Scout Trooper on his own. Technically, this isn't even really an accessory, it's a part of the suit, but this goes on the back of his belt. Interestingly enough, it's curved around. I say that because bringing in the Sideshow one, there is a significant difference here. This one is completely flat, and you can see the tubes are much larger on the Hot Toys one. The paint applications are also drastically different. It's a little bit of foreshadowing to when we look at the armor itself. Now you will notice the Hot Toys one doesn't come with these pre-positioned boots at this angle. You'll see why, but the Hot Toys figure doesn't really need that, which is definitely a good thing. Now he only comes with one weapon, and it's of course the mini Scout Trooper blaster pistol. Comparing that to the Sideshow one, there is pretty much a lot of similarities here in terms of the mold, except the Hot Toys one is drastically bigger. Also, for some reason, the paint applications on the Sideshow one, to my eye, look a little bit better. There's some dry brushing of silver over the top, whereas the Hot Toys one is literally just a straight-up matte black. Granted, they both do the exact same thing, and they are supposed to be the exact same weapon, but I might just give the edge to the Sideshow one for these slightly better paint applications. Now, the interesting thing here is the way the Scout Trooper actually holds the blaster pistol. You can see the gun-shooting hand actually has two fingers out, so you wrap both of those fingers around the handle, and he holds the pistol like that. I've never actually noticed that with the Scout Troopers, but yeah, it makes sense. It's a super interesting design for a hand to go along with the pistol. Now he does of course come with a bunch of other hands, some nice padding on the back, and some stitching around the edges to make it look like a leather glove. What we are going to do now though is continue looking at accessories, but we're going to get all of the bits and pieces that come with the Deluxe, Speeder Bike, and Grogu 2-pack version, and take a closer look at everything it comes with. And here of course we have all of the added accessories that come with the Deluxe version with the Speeder Bike. Now there is some assembly required, and I have left the pieces off just to show you what the Speeder Bike comes like in the box. Also, it is worth noting that this set comes with everything that you saw in the previous clip, just with all of these added pieces, including another standard display base. Often we do get just one big diorama base when we do get these deluxe sets, and they don't give us the standard one as well. But this time they've opted to give us the standard base in addition to the big honkin' diorama one. Now we may as well take a look at this first. It looks stunning. There's not just this grey wash over the top, but there's also a speckling of whitewash on there as well, just to bring out even more detail. Then of course we have the stones, and they are painted marvelously. This thing looks gorgeous, and I do believe this is the first time we've seen this base. But as Hot Toys likes to do, I'm pretty sure we will be seeing this in some sort of future release sometime down the line, and I wouldn't complain about that. This thing is awesome. And of course, it does have the dynamic flight pole to hold up the speeder bike. Now you do get Grogu in this set, which technically does make it a 2-pack. We will be taking a much closer look at him later on in the video and comparing him to the one that comes with Beskar Mando. You do also get a little satchel bag with real working straps. The only thing that I'd say to be wary about is the edges. They are starting to fray just a little bit, and this is fresh out of the box, so if you do go about removing these straps from the little clips a bunch of times, you will potentially damage it. Now on the inside of the bag, if you don't want to actually have Grogu in there, there is a little pillow just to give you the illusion that the child is in the bag. It's an interesting touch, and it's something that they absolutely didn't have to do, but I'm glad they did. It's sort of useful if you do want to have Grogu with another character on display and give the suggestion that he's in that bag there. Now let's talk about the additional pieces that you do have to plug on to the speeder bike. These are of course the handlebars. You will see that on the bike in a later clip. And these little sections right here, which I was thinking, what on earth are these? Of course, I brought out the instructions and I saw a couple of very interesting things. These attach to the foot sections and they're magnetic. That's what keeps the Scout Trooper on the bike himself. So, bringing in the Scout Trooper, as you can see, they simply magnetize on the front there. That is genius. I love that design and I cannot wait to put this trooper on that bike. What we are going to do now though is just get the standard version of the Scout Trooper out here and take a closer look. And here we have him standing straight up and down in the light box, no crazy poses or accessories or anything like that. I love the way this guy looks. He is a super classy version of a Scout Trooper by Hot Toys. I don't know why it's taken them this long to give us this design, but I'm glad it's finally here. I love the Scout Trooper design, and they've translated it really well into figure format, and done a few things even better than the Sideshow release, but we'll save that for the comparisons. Overall, I love the choice of body here. It looks fantastic. It looks like a proper human standing there in the light box, well proportioned, and yeah, he fills out the suit very, very nicely. The paint applications are stunning, of course. He's super weathered, he's super dirty, and super grimy, and you'll see that when we punch in just a second. I'm really impressed though, overall, with the design of the trooper himself, and I'm getting more and more excited to take a look at that bike fully assembled. What we are going to do now though is take the Scout Trooper off the rotating turntable, punch in, and take a closer look at the details. And here we have him up close and personal. And yeah, I'm really liking the way this guy looks. Don't worry, we will be doing a much closer up side by side to the Sideshow one to see what differences there are between the two figures. But trust me, the Hot Toys one is definitely superior in some very key important areas. Let's start off by talking about the helmet design. This thing looks gorgeous. It's the Scout Trooper through and through. Plus, on top of that, they've added all of this weathering and dirt and grime. It looks dirty, it looks nasty, and that's perfect for the Star Wars universe. I've never noticed this asymmetrical design of these stripes on the back of the helmet, but if Hot Toys have done it, then I'd imagine that they were definitely there. One of the interesting things that they nailed in figure format is this gap between the front faceplate and the back of the helmet. For those of you who don't know, in The Mandalorian, Jason Sudeikis, who is known for playing Ted Lasso among other things, actually was in the Scout Trooper armor. And unfortunately, his head was a little bit too big and the helmet couldn't close all the way. And yes, Hot Toys did capture that in figure format. There is that gap that is accurate to the episode where we first saw the Scout Troopers in Season 1. So yeah, I'm really loving that helmet design. Hot Toys definitely nailed it with the Scout Trooper here. Would I like to see a Return of the Jedi cleaner version? Yeah, absolutely. I think that'd look fantastic as well, but this more dirty remnant version of the Scout Trooper still looks really awesome. Now, of course, with the rest of the armor, we do have a bunch of weathering and dirt collected in all the crevices. It looks fantastic and suitably filthy for riding around on a dusty, dirty planet like Navarro. Now, in the same episode, when we first saw this helmet gap, we also saw a significant gap between this cloth section and the top armor. You can recreate that if you want to pull it down, but I personally actually prefer to close that gap and pull it up, because that's my preferred look for the Scout Troopers. I don't like having that big black gap between the top plate and this bottom section. But if you do want to, this is infinitely adjustable. You can pull it down, push it up, whatever you like. So yes, if you do want to have it 110% accurate to the episode, you can definitely make that happen. Now, one of the biggest differences between this version and the Sideshow one is how weathered the cloth sections are. It actually looks like one cohesive unit, whereas the Sideshow one has a very stark white section for the cloth, which you'll see when we of course do the comparisons. Now, coming down to the legs, it is relatively straightforward, literally a cloth pair of black pants with some little pockets. Now, another inaccuracy to the Return of the Jedi Scout Troopers is in the Mandalorian. Unfortunately, they put the knee pads upside down, and they have done that here in figure format as well. If you do want to flip them around, you can definitely remove them. They are simply on elastic straps, flip them around, and then they'll be up the right way. But even they are remarkably well detailed, with a bunch of dirt and wash in all of the crevices. Coming down to the boots, these might just be my favorite pieces on the entire figure. Crazy to say because they're just boots, but the engineering choices here and the material choice was just genius. First of all, it's not pleather, it's this sort of waxy style fabric, and that means you can get absolutely infinite range of motion out of the boot. That is insane. The Sideshow one came with an alternate pair of shoes that were up like this for the speeder bike. This one doesn't need that. They've used a material that is soft and supple enough, but still really well painted and detailed that you can get insane range of motion. I'm super impressed with the boots on the Scout Trooper here. It's actually an overlay piece that's over the top of the shoe, but it's connected around the front. Whatever Hot Toys designers were thinking here, they nailed it, and fingers crossed with future Scout Troopers they use this exact same design. And of course, on the underside, we do have some really dirty and nasty treads. On the back of the armor, we do have this section, which you saw in the accessories segment, that does curve around the back and nicely slot onto the belt, and finally, this little backpack with a bunch of detailing up top. Overall, yeah, I'm super happy with this guy. Scout Troopers are one of my favorite designs of all time for Imperial Troopers, and Hot Toys, in my personal opinion, did nail it. However, let me know what you think of Hot Toys Scout Trooper down in the comments below. Now for our quick side-by-side comparison, here we have the Hot Toys Scout Trooper on the left and the Sideshow one on the right. Now let me just prefix this by saying the Sideshow one is significantly older than the Hot Toys release. The years have not been kind to their choice of body here. It looks way out of proportion, stumpy but also too boxy. It just looks really goofy standing there. When you do pop him on the speeder bike, those issues become a little bit less apparent, but standing next to the Hot Toys one, yeah, it's night and day. The proportions on the Hot Toys body are significantly better. He looks like a real person standing there in Scout Trooper armor. However, that being said, there is still a massive color difference and also a couple of design differences between the two that may encourage you to pick up one over the other. Say you're not a fan of The Mandalorian, you may opt to pick up the Sideshow one to go with your Return of the Jedi display. Totally understandable, it is accurate to that film, whereas the Mando one has made some interesting design choices, as we discussed earlier in the video. However, I still really like both of these figures, but if I absolutely had to pick a winner here based on just the look alone, I definitely would be going with the Hot Toys release. Now for a much closer side-by-side comparison, here we have the Sideshow Scout Trooper on the right and the Hot Toys one on the left. It's interesting to see just how cool in tone the Sideshow one is compared to the Hot Toys figure. It's a lot bluer, but in person they still both come across as a white. It's just this one has a bit more of a warmer tone. But coming down to the midsection, you can see a dramatic difference between the two in terms of design. The Hot Toys one does have a significantly dirtier belt section here that matches with the armor, whereas on the Sideshow one, it sits up quite a lot higher. The chest plate is a lot smaller, and this is pretty much completely unweathered. I definitely do prefer the design of the Hot Toys one with this bigger chest plate. It makes him look a lot more in proportion. Same thing can be said with the various armor panels on the arms. Look how much this one flares out compared to the Hot Toys one, which sits nice and flush and close to the shoulders there. Coming down, as you can see, the pants are pretty much exactly the same, but you can see that Sideshow did of course put these knee pads the right way around, whereas Hot Toys, which is accurate to the show mind you, got them upside down there. And as for the boots, the difference is night and day because the Sideshow ones are sculpted plastic and they are significantly dirtied up. I do really like the look of the Sideshow ones, but the engineering and material choices on the Hot Toys ones just wins out. It's straight up a landslide in my personal opinion. Now I have saved the helmet for last. You can see, I'm not sure if from this angle, but in person, the Sideshow one is significantly larger. It's wider and it is taller as well in pretty much every dimension. It is a bigger piece. You can also see the visor sits a little bit narrower, whereas on the Hot Toys one, it droops down just a little bit further. It's a very interesting and subtle difference, but it makes the Hot Toys one look a little bit more imposing. Not to say if you have this guy that it's an absolutely awful release. I still love mine, and it's of course accurate to Return of the Jedi, but having these two now in hand with a huge age difference between the two, this was released quite a long time ago, I do believe that Hot Toys does have a Scout Trooper which presents as a modern day figure quite a lot better than the Sideshow release. Just going over articulation on the Scout Trooper. Now bear in mind, this is my personal copy of the figure, so I'm going to be a little bit more careful. I'm sure when you get yours in hand, you can push the joints slightly further than I'm willing to go. Now starting off with the head sculpt itself, it is on a double ball joint, so you do get a fairly decent range of motion, and when you do have him looking up on the speeder bike, yeah, I think that's more than enough. The arms themselves are relatively tight to move, but they will go forward all the way, and they will go out the full way as well. You do have a butterfly joint at the shoulder. You do of course have a double bend at the elbow and a swivel, plus a regular 1/6 scale wrist peg for the hand itself. As for the torso, there is a lot of padding going on here, not only with this section, but underneath the suit, so it is a little bit more restricted, crunching forward and back, swivel and pivot side to side. The legs themselves will go forward the full way to about there, but you will have to work with and futz the outfit to get them up a little bit higher. They'll go out to about there, swivel at the upper thigh, double bend on ratchets at the knee, and of course that fabulous, massive range of articulation at the ankle. Now, technically, this is a 2-pack, so here we have Grogu himself up close and personal. And if you've never seen one of these pre-posed 1/6 scale Grogu figures by Hot Toys, then you're in for a bit of a treat. This little guy looks absolutely gorgeous. He's very cute, he's got the super big glassy eyes, he's got the big honkin' smile, and of course his ears are up. He's on the speeder bike, he's having a whale of a time. The body itself, though, is identical to the one we got with the Beskar Mando here. The paint applications are slightly different. This one has more of a charcoalish colour up here on the top, versus this one which looks a little bit more of a reddish brown. But by and large they are very, very similar. It's the head sculpts that you're going to notice a massive difference here. The paint applications, though, on the new one are still fantastic. He's got a great, very detailed skin tone, and also a little bit of pink up here on the ears. This might just be my favourite 1/6 scale Grogu right now, but of course if we do get a bunch more, including the one that's coming with Ahsoka for Season 2, we will have more to compare, and don't worry, there will be a Grogu comparison video sometime in the future, I'm sure. But yes, overall, this one, for now at least, is my favourite. And here we have it, the pièce de résistance, the speeder bike itself. Don't worry, we will be comparing this to the Sideshow one in a later clip. Now let's take a look at the paint applications first. This thing is gorgeous. Pretty much every white panel is detailed to the nines, with scratches and wear and tear and pitting, and it really does look like a well-loved, well-used item, which of course it would be at this point in its career. I also love the various sections where there would be wear and tear from the Scout Trooper's legs rubbing against the white paint. It's a really nicely done piece. Then at the back here, for the various intakes, you do have a little bit more detail, plus these absolutely gorgeous copper-style engine pieces on the inside, on both sides, with the real opening working flaps. This thing is stunning. I didn't ever realize that this section was slightly off to the side, an interesting design that I'm sure is accurate to the real-life miniature. Now as for the detail up on top here, it's really nicely done. We have all of these little stick sections, plus some various buttons picked out in the right paint colors. Now you also do have this section up the top here. It's not a rubbery style piece, it's just a fixed plastic item. This entire thing is made of plastic, so yes, it is relatively lightweight, but that does mean that I think this is going to be an easier item to display. What do I mean by that? Well, if this was a super heavy die-cast or polystone style thing, number one, imagine putting that in a glass cabinet. It would be a recipe for disaster. Also, it would be putting a lot of stress on the various components to hold up the heavier sections. So I'm glad it's a lightweight construction. Hot Toys definitely nailed it here. There's also amazing detail on the underside with various hoses and this little intake section, plus the gun. Don't worry, we'll talk about the moving parts in just a second. One super interesting aspect that I found was the bag. I didn't know that it attached to the back of the bike like this. First of all, there's these various sections which you can remove. That way you can slot the strap underneath, so no, you don't have to fully undo the strap in order to get the bag on the bike here, which I personally do appreciate. Then, the pillow inside the bag has a magnet in it, so when you rest it on the back, it nicely and firmly sits in place. This is kind of a callback to that little backpack or little rolled up mattress thing that you had on the previous Scout Trooper bike. And you'll see that in the upcoming clip where we do the comparisons. Now, let's talk about the moving parts on the speeder bike. Do be careful, I am moving the parts on mine, but just exercise a lot of caution when you're moving them on yours. First of all, the flaps up the front can be pivoted, then moving up to the handles themselves. These are a super interesting design. There is a real working piston there, and they can move forward and back. Then you have the handlebar sections which can move, plus these sections on the ends as well. So yes, there is a bunch of movement out of this section right here. Then, coming to the gun, it can drop down just a little bit and swivel side to side. Moving back further, we do have these sections which can move up and down. Then we do have the foot sections which can also pivot forward and back. These feel incredibly fragile, so please be careful when you're moving them on yours. And yes, we've already seen these. The flaps in the back can open and close. Hot Toys, for their first attempt at a speeder bike, I personally think really nailed the design here. This thing looks and feels really darn fantastic in hand. If you are careful, you shouldn't really have any issues whatsoever with breakages, unlike my Sideshow one, which literally broke fresh out of the box. Very, very unfortunate. But overall, for Hot Toys' first speeder, as I said, I personally am really impressed. And here we have him on the speeder bike. And yeah, this looks absolutely awesome. I'm so very glad I decided to get another bike for the display, because this guy sitting on there looks like $1,000,000. Plus the benefit of having the magnets in the feet, it's just genius. He's super sturdy on there. Honestly, he doesn't really feel like he's going to fall off at all, even if potentially he does get tipped to some crazy angles. I love that. Because of course, with the dynamic display base pole, you can get this guy tilted at insane angles on the display. And those magnets should do a decent job of keeping his feet in place there. Now I would like to get him sitting a little bit lower, but I just have to work in the joints a little bit more. Overall though, I'm super impressed with the way he looks on the bike, and you'll have to let me know what you think so far of the Scout Trooper and the bike down in the comments below. And I'm sure this is the moment a lot of y'all have been waiting for. We're about to compare the Sideshow bike to the Hot Toys one. Let's talk about the dimensions first. In every real measurable dimension, they are almost identical, which is a good thing. The length is almost the same, the width is pretty much the same as well at the front and at the back. That means if you did want to have both on display next to one another, one is not going to look drastically out of scale compared to the other, so that I really do like. Now, this is going to get a little bit awkward just due to the sheer size of both bikes, but taking a look at the detail compared to one another, they are relatively similar. Let's talk about the control panel. The Hot Toys one is a lot wider, but there is a bunch more detail there. You can see the little joysticks are a lot smaller and thinner, and you don't have to install them out of the box. Like the Sideshow one, you have to plug in every single one by hand, and sometimes they do fall out. You can also see a bunch more rivets and buttons on the Hot Toys release. Coming down to the seat though, there is a lot more detail on the Sideshow seat. Plus, it's a lot more weathered, there's dirt and grime collected in the seat itself. Now as for the back, we do have a little knapsack style section on the back of the Sideshow bike, and we do have the satchel messenger bag on the Hot Toys one to give that same style look. Now on the back we do have a very similar design with that off-center little exhaust section, and the flaps do open on both releases, revealing a very similar level of detail. Now as you can see, pieces are starting to fall off the Sideshow bike. That was one of my biggest complaints about the piece. It was very, very fragile. This Hot Toys one, you can shake it around and nothing is going to fall off. If I did that with the Sideshow one, the entire thing would probably fall apart. Now taking a look at the underside, you can see a lot more dirt and grime on the Sideshow bike here, and that extends around to the sides, whereas the Hot Toys one is slightly cleaner. But then again, the white sections are weathered really nicely, just like they are on the Sideshow one, except they're not white, they are brown. And now up the top here we do have the fins, although the Sideshow one is now missing a fin because it decided to fall off. But yeah, overall, they are both great options. If you already have the Sideshow bike, you can just straight up go ahead and pick up the Hot Toys Scout Trooper and upgrade the figure itself without really needing to double dip on a speeder bike. However, if you do want one that moves a lot better in terms of these sections and also the gun and these various sections down here at the feet without falling apart, as you can see right here, then yes, maybe you do want to go ahead and pick up the Hot Toys bike. Overall though, I'm still really happy to have two different versions of the Return of the Jedi / Mandalorian speeder bike in my collection. And because I'm sure a lot of you wanted to see this, here we have the Hot Toys Scout Trooper on the Sideshow bike. So yes, you definitely can do it. Unfortunately, the one big drawback of having a nice new modern body with super tight joints is that it's a little bit hard to crunch him down to get him on the bike, especially because this is super fragile. So when I start to push him down, stuff starts to fall off, as you can see right here. So it's not the easiest thing in the world to do, but you can definitely get it done. And he goes on there, and it works. So yeah, I am potentially going to have one of my Hot Toys Scout Troopers on this bike. It serves as a nice upgrade to the original Sideshow Scout Trooper, although that one still fits really nicely on this bike. Overall though, you'll have to let me know what you think of this combo down in the comments below. Here is IG-11 on the bike. Hot Toys have done something really clever here. I didn't even know that they did this, but there are magnets in the feet in the same sections as these. So technically this guy was engineered to always go on the bike. And also, that's why potentially these pieces come so far down, unlike the Sideshow one where these are fixed in place. It's so that you can accommodate an IG unit. I still wouldn't keep mine on this bike for a long period of time just because I'm worried about these gaskets on these sections cracking. But just to take your pictures and have him on display maybe for a brief period, this is a pretty darn awesome looking combo. I'm really surprised that this big honkin' piece of metal and plastic can wrangle his way onto the bike. It's really, really impressive. Hot Toys did a great job with the articulation and also the engineering on the bike here to create a winning combo. I'm surprised that we couldn't pick up IG with the child and a bike. That would have been an awesome set, but I guess they're encouraging us to pick up multiple Scout Troopers. Either way, this looks absolutely awesome, and I'm super glad that Hot Toys had the foresight to make this guy and the bike compatible. And for the final mashup combo, here we have the Sideshow Scout Trooper on the Hot Toys bike. And yeah, if for whatever reason you wanted to do this, it works, and it looks really, really good. I think that this could be a winning combo for the shelf. If Hot Toys hadn't have already given us superior Scout Troopers, this guy looks great bent down sitting on this bike, but when you have him standing, he looks all kinds of goofy just because of that older body. However, that older, looser body does allow you to crunch him down a little bit easier than the Hot Toys one, where you do have to work in the joints just a little bit more. Overall though, just because I know someone was going to comment telling me I didn't do this mashup, here it is, and I personally think it looks pretty good. Moving on to the 3 cool and 3 annoying things with the Scout Trooper. The first annoying thing has to be this stupid little thing on the back here. Why was this not permanently attached, I don't know, but literally every time I'm trying to repose him or put him on the bike, this thing goes flying. It's super annoying. I don't know why Hot Toys still do this. They fixed it with the Rogue One Stormtroopers by having it permanently attached to the belt. With future Scout Troopers, I hope they don't make the same mistake of having that thing removable, because when are we ever going to remove it? It's pretty much part of the costume design. The second annoying thing isn't the inclusion of the bag, but it's the fact that these straps are starting to fray. And if this is something you're going to want to be taking your Yoda in and out of, then yeah, it's going to get even worse. Really annoying. I don't know why they didn't simply just stitch along that bottom edge, and that way we would literally never have had that issue. The third annoying thing is the use of this display base once again. Don't get me wrong, I personally love a good diorama display base, but this ain't it, Hot Toys. You can't keep using this same fixed foot position display base, otherwise literally everyone in our Mandalorian display will be standing in the exact same position. It's super weird. I wish they'd do away with this. You can keep the sandy effect, just simply ditch these 2 footprints. The first cool thing has to be the speeder bike itself. That we are even getting this piece is super surprising to me, and that it is so good makes me, really darn happy. It's got a bunch of moving pieces here and there. You can open the flaps in the back. You've got that magnetic section for the little backpack, and you do also have the magnets for the feet. It's Hot Toys pretty much taking what Sideshow did and perfecting it. They've seen what went wrong, the fragility and the various sections which can and will fall off on the Sideshow one, and they've made a ton of improvements on their own model. I'm pleased to report that this thing is super sturdy as long as you're not too crazy with it. I don't think there should be any reports of breakage. The second cool thing is the material choice for the shoes, or I should say the boots. It's genius. It's a super soft, supple material, but it still has this waxy effect over the top. I don't think these are going to crease long term, but granted they are always creased looking anyway, but you can get an absolutely insane range of motion out of them. This is something that they would have noticed Sideshow have done with these swap out shoes and said, hey, we'll do you one better. Look at the range of motion we can get out of a fabric style boot. And the third cool thing is of course that they had the foresight to make the magnetic feet work with IG-11 on the speeder bike. It's something that I didn't even think of, but now that I'm seeing it in person, yeah, these two were obviously designed to go together from the start. Hot Toys, you sneaky devils, I'm so glad you took that little bit of extra time to give IG-11 those magnets in the feet that 99% of people who may not ever pick up this speeder bike literally would never have known about. Just wrapping up on the Mandalorian Scout Trooper and the Scout Trooper and Grogu 2-pack that comes with the speeder bike. Let's talk about the Trooper himself first. He's fantastic. The articulation is pretty much on point. I love the material choices, specifically the boots. And of course, the armor looks phenomenal. The paint applications are second to none. He is one of the best troopers that I think Hot Toys have ever done, both in terms of posability and in terms of look. He is that darn stunning in person. Trust me, if you are on the fence about picking up a Scout Trooper, maybe you have the Sideshow bike and you don't want the Hot Toys bike, get yourself the Hot Toys Scout Trooper. He is that darn good. Now, let's talk about the Deluxe Pack with the bike and Grogu. It's fantastic. The bike is super sturdy. I don't think we really have to worry much about any breakages, as long as you're not ham-handed and go crazy, sort of finagling it into various positions. You should be fine, which is a good thing. It's a lightweight plastic piece. Normally I would complain about that, but for something that's going to be sort of suspended in the air via only one dynamic pole, yeah, you want it light, so I'm glad Hot Toys did that. It's painted really well, it's sculpted really well, it's got a bunch of moving pieces, it's got magnets in it, which you all know me, I love my magnets in my figures, and now obviously in my speeder bikes. They nailed the design here. Plus, it is compatible with IG-11. Who would have thought that was going to happen? They've already installed the magnets in his feet without telling anyone. Very sneaky Hot Toys. So yes, at the end of the video, I do recommend picking up the deluxe set with the speeder bike, but if you don't want the speeder bike, the Scout Trooper by himself is still a really solid option. The links for both are down, of course, in the description below. To head over to toyswonderland.com. They are in stock and ready to ship right now, or if you'd like to save a little bit of cash, check out the second batch pre-order link. While you are down there, why not check out the link to 6th Scale Network, the awesome Facebook group. Come along, chat figures, share photos of your collection, and of course, see what's coming up next on the channel. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next video.